Hello and welcome to another episode of the Barnsley StartUp MeetUp podcast with me, your host, Matt Roberts, as usual. With me today, I've got Matt Snowden, Program Development Manager for TechSY, and he's going to be doing the next talk at the StartUp MeetUp in March. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you.
It's good to have you on. Do you want to just start off? Should we kick off with just having a little bit of background about yourself, how you got involved with the TechSY team and all of that sort of good stuff?
Yeah, no worries. I sort of joined the Enterprising Barnsley team back in 2019, and that was through the Tech Revolution project, and that was based on the back of the Barnsley TechTown project. That was again another European project, and I think that's a good place to start, given sort of the announcement a couple of weeks ago about Barnsley being TechTown.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's just important to remember that this is like a decade-long piece of work that got Barnsley to there. And part of that was all the European work, which is how I landed in this world of sort of economic development and sort of specifically looking at digital economies and tech as startups. So that was back in 2019, worked with all these different European cities. The Barnsley was the sort of lead partner on, so we got this good practice recognition for the DMC and Enterprising Barnsley, and a lot of the work that sort of Tracy Johnson had done to that point. So I've worked with Tracy sort of since then, really.
Yeah.
Some of that work developed projects like Team SY that was sort of 2020 to 2023, brought a lot of accelerators into the region. So I was marketing manager for that, marketing manager for the DMC, and for Enterprising Barnsley generally. So giving that sort of business support piece, and then steering that into tech, and then TechSY sort of became a project sort of off of the back of that. Some of that work that Barnsley was doing to develop the ecosystem within Barnsley, the sort of combined authority back in 2020, I think this conversation sort of started, 2021. The Combined Authority asked Barnsley to design a programme that could do what we're doing for Barnsley for the rest of the region, and that sort of started in September 2023. We started that, or 2024 we started that. Time is a mystery with all of this. It all blurs into one. So September 2024, sort of became Program Development Manager, and then we hired the team, and it's been all go since there, really.
Awesome. So I'm going to start at the kind of end, and then we'll kind of work forwards, really, I guess, or at least I'm going to jump around is really what I'm saying. But it's really crucial. Like, you mentioned there, obviously the TechTown announcement a couple of weeks ago is huge for Barnsley, and for Barnsley businesses. But that's the culmination of decades of work, right, in terms of setting the scene and placing Barnsley in that role and having the tools and the expertise within the council and within the wider business community to be able to champion Barnsley in that in that position. So how do you feel that's going to change for Barnsley, or is it going to change Barnsley in any kind of a way?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a big opportunity. We've seen the announcements very much focused on bringing AI skills into the region. I think looking at that productivity issue, and I think that will make a difference. Barnsley's built on sort of manufacturing, logistics, as sort of the general industries, and I think being able to give the opportunity for more businesses, like all the businesses that Enterprising Barnsley work with, that Launchpad sort of support and see through. You've got the sort of Barnsley Village, the BBIC down the road. You've got all these sort of businesses, but now being able to have that support to be, becoming more digitalised, bringing AI skills in, the opportunity to work with some of the businesses that are part of this. So you've got like Microsoft, Cisco,
Adobe,
a
big one as well, wasn't it?
And I think being able to offer that out to other communities and make it sort of quite inclusive. I think it meets the Barnsley Inclusive Economy Board sort of objectives that they'll be looking to support. And I think then you've got this within within Barnsley, you've got the rest of South Yorkshire, and you've got, really innovative businesses. You've got the Advanced Manufacturing Centre, you've got, businesses like Bumper that are doing great stuff around finance. You've got Intelliam in Rotherham doing a lot of stuff around taking AI into these sort of manufacturing and warehouses, Forgeor as well. And I think being able to see, I think for me, it's creating the opportunity in Barnsley for businesses like that to sort of be created and even the playing field a little bit. I think it would be really important.
Yeah, I mean, just being recognised on a national stage is aspirational, right? It kind of gives businesses that kind of, or people who are looking to start a business, or even that are already running a business but have got an idea that could elevate the business to scale up, right, is huge, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was just going to say then, actually, that the work that you're doing with Tech SY is region-wide, right? So a lot of the stuff that you've done prior to Tech SY was just Barnsley-based, is that right? Or is it kind of more, I guess there was the Team SY stuff as well, right?
Yeah, so we did it, we started, the sort of Tech Revolution project was based on what Barnsley was doing. So when sort of Tracy took over the DMC in 2015, the capacity, the occupancy, of the building was 60%. And by sort of aligning what the DMC was doing around tech, digital and creatives, she was able to get it up to the point where they were having to change meeting rooms into office space to meet demand. So building on that work, building on how Enterprising Barnsley supported that, how the council generally supported that as well, with some of this stuff isn't an easy sell into local politics, but there was an appetite there to do that and lead on that sort of that the project allowed Barnsley to sort of have that self-reflection and go, right, we're leading this. Businesses can come and learn about what we're doing. Projects like bringing IoT Tribe to Barnsley was a sort of key thing, part of that. You had projects like connected manufacturing, connected healthcare, where you were taking industries and aligning tech businesses and getting them together to solve problems, and then supporting that. I think that's where it's all sort of started. And then, Barnsley had the opportunity to lead on projects like Digital Innovation for Growth, which is a bit like the South Yorkshire Innovation Programme now, but it was European funded back then. And the Team SY project, where it's been delivered by Barnsley Council locally, but delivered for the full region, and Tech SY is the same. So yeah, it's sort of always been. Previously, we've had that Barnsley focus because Barnsley was getting that sort of European money in, and you needed the chance to sort of distribute that regionally. Whereas Tech SY is delivered by Barnsley Council still, but it is very much for the region.
I mean, just on that point, like in terms of all of the programs that you've just mentioned there are all kind of wider, either national or international programs or money that have been championed by Barnsley and delivered through Barnsley. Fundamentally, it means that the original trailblazers encourage more kind of excellent people to come into the region and then deliver more of that kind of program, right? More of that sort of linking up between tech innovators and more traditional businesses to then kind of level up the region, right?
Yeah. That's definitely worked previously. I think some of the stuff we've sort of seen when we did the deal room report back in January at the tech summit that we hosted. I think there's a bit in there around defence, and I think that's where there's a next opportunity for some of that, where we've got Barnsley and South Yorkshire have big manufacturing places. Sheffield's obviously known as the Steel City. There's enough going on there, and it's how do we take some of these dual use tech businesses and create a cluster there, if possible, and try and grow that as a place. And a lot of it is bringing people together. That's how the DMC sort of sprung into life, and that sort of years ago. And hopefully defence gives you a sort of sector to do that, and I'm sure there's plenty of other sectors that can have the same thing.
So we were talking earlier, one of my previous interviews was with Ben Hawley, and I think he was mentioning that on his first day, or your first day, just talking about back in the day, was when you worked for Enterprising Barnsley, how you got the opportunity to see or hear a load of people pitching for kind of new businesses or pitching their ideas for new businesses. How do you feel that like kind of shaped your career, and did it encourage you to do more with developing businesses in Barnsley?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, definitely. I think it's funny that I know the example Ben gave you, which was, within my first week, I think first couple of days, he was a launchpad advisor at the time, and I'd come in as marketing manager, and he'd said, come and sit in on one of the sort of meetings I've got. You'll get to learn about the process, what we do, how we support businesses to grow. And really interesting for me to go and do that. The business idea that I sat down on that very first one, I'm not going to name it just in case, for reasons. It was. I mean, I was biting my tongue so hard not to laugh at the idea, and I don't want to be disrespectful because it was someone's business idea. It just did not have. It had not been thought through at all in terms of any part of it. I think they'd seen a YouTube video, which was essentially a one-off sort of creative piece that they were making that had some sort of function to it. It was never, ever going to be a business. Yeah. And I was sort of like, what is this? What is happening? Am I being punked? Like, has Ben set this up? But yeah, seeing Ben sort of actually, very professionally, obviously, but he led the guy to get to that conclusion himself by asking all the right questions, exactly, but pitching it around like, well, have you thought about what does the sort of commercial model look like for this? How much does it cost to make one? How much are you going to sell them at? Have you got the actual artistic skills to create something similar to what he'd seen in this YouTube video? And the answers just didn't stack up at all. Being able to take that learning and then see it evolve as I went on. Sort of, we worked with businesses. Like one of Ben's other clients was like Lucy and Yak.
Yes.
So again, he took, and he'll admit that I think the first time he met that business, he didn't see it being anywhere near the business that it is today. That's like sold all over the globe. He saw someone trying to sell dungarees and went, okay, that's fine, but support it. And I think that's the element that I try and remember is like, it's not about me judging anyone's business idea. It's been able to sort of, what I've learned is all the support systems around it that build that up and what that means. And that's where then I think the experiences I've had on those like Tech Revolution projects, we were able to go to like these amazing places. So Helsinki was one of them, Tallinn, and we were able to see that full ecosystem approach that is then different to what the businesses Launchpad were supporting, which are quite traditional generally in terms of like things like how cash flow works and how they get customers. And most of them aren't looking for investors. It's more like a place or a lifestyle business, which is fine and great.
Yeah, of course.
But then being put in this world where there are tech businesses where you need this ecosystem support, and you're looking at raising investment to develop an idea, and like learning the two differences was important. But being able to go to these great places where you suddenly see that, and I remember being at Maria 01, which is sort of similar to DMC but in Helsinki, so more saunas essentially, and it was a completely new world, and I think that my eyes really opened to that, and I think I fully bought into that, and being able to see then the difference of actually these tech businesses bring in high growth, that they've got that high growth potential to fully scale. With the right investment, and that actually brings more economic growth, more jobs, more skills, and I think that's what, like, that is the aspiration for Barnsley. And I think it's been quite full circle recently, because obviously at the Tech Summit we had Sarita Rumberg, who is the now chief executive of Maria 01, coming to Barnsley and to South Yorkshire to tell everyone else around what had made Maria 01 so successful, and like building that community and things that we'd seen in Barnsley and like collaboration, but also being able to structure the other support systems around it, like how do we bring in actual investors to
It's crucial, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's something that Enterprising Barnsley does so well, that Business Sheffield does so well, and like just in general, the regional, the support around the region in terms of, like you say, when Ben was asking the questions, you've got to bring someone to the point at which they kind of recognise, this might be an insurmountable challenge, or at least have I got the wherewithal, the motivation to finish that, or to see this idea through to a business, right? And so you ask all those questions around, what's your commercial model? How are you bringing this to market? Where's your supply chain? What if that supply chain goes away? And all of those sorts of things, and really make people consider and think about all of those additional elements around starting a business that are probably not really on the first, like at the front of your mind when you have the original idea or the initial idea, right? And it's something that's really positive and really powerful around the region is how many different sources of that kind of information or support there is in South Yorkshire.
Yeah, so we were obviously as Tech SY, one of the things we've brought in as a product is the idea validation grant, and that was one of the products that we had when Tracy was sort of designing the program of Tech SY, and what we've been able to do is actually assess the market and look at some of the data and speak to all the stakeholders within the region to go, like, what is the problem in South Yorkshire, and not having enough startups was potentially one of those problems. So the idea validation grant looks to initially address that, but actually allows us to sort of, and what Tech SY has been about is about testing and learning.
Yeah.
So we were able to test within that program and product itself, because we gave businesses the opportunity to, well, is it cash that you need? So you can apply for up to $2,500 cash. And you had to submit your idea and what you're going to spend it on and all that. Or we were able to offer them sort of business support through Trove Ventures. Yeah. And I think both options, I think it was roughly 50-50 split or 60-40. I don't have the numbers on what it was, but it was fairly evenly taken up. But yeah, I think that being able to offer both has been really useful, and we've had great feedback from both. I think we've had amazing feedback specifically from the sort of team within Trove Ventures and those that have been supported, but I think that's because they've been in that 90-day program of support, and actually the value of that support was more like $5,000 rather than $2,500. But we were able to support businesses through that, and again, I think what Tech SY has been really good at in that other layer of support is the increase of scale-up advisors. So again, we've taken that approach of looking at the ecosystem and identifying the gaps, or where there is resource, and actually amplifying it. So in Sheffield, the business supporters there offers tech scale-up advisors, but only for businesses in Sheffield. So Tech SY was able to put money into that and scale that up, so businesses from Barnsley, Rotherham and Doncaster could all access that support. And again, been able to learn from that, and what is the demand from those other areas? Because obviously Sheffield is the hub for all this in the region. It just is. The stats show us that. The eye test, if you like, shows you that. But there has been really strong demand for it as well. And businesses that have had that resource going, well, I need more. So I think that's where we've been, that important layer of being able to come in, test, learn, and try and change. We've seen that with like the action plan.
Yeah, absolutely. So coming on to what we're talking about for the next StartUp MeetUp, obviously we're kind of, you're almost 2 years into the program, and a lot of the target for the program was to kind of uncover the data in the region and start to actually formalize how that's delivered and how that's surfaced for people, for not just businesses, but for people who are making policy, people who are deciding where money goes and all of that sort of stuff. So do you want to just take me through a little bit about like the process? How did you find the data? What did you learn from it initially to then put on programs and all of that sort of stuff?
Yeah, so I think, through all the work I've been doing before, one of the things that always came up was you'd hear things like, oh, South Yorkshire's this hidden gem, or it's outside of London, it's the startup capital of the UK. And I'm a bit of it, I question things constantly. Like, if I hear something like that, I'm going, how do you know that?
Yeah.
So the idea of Tracy, sort of before Tech SY had started, we had the idea of bringing in Deal Room.
Yeah.
If you've not looked at Deal Room, sy.dealroom.co.
I'll put a link in the description below.
Yeah, really, really useful resource which allows you to essentially map your ecosystem. So it looks at what investment is happening, so it's able to track that. It tracks sort of employee growth, and essentially it's tracking high growth potential businesses. So we were able to put all South Yorkshire's data into that, and what it's helped us do is actually be able to tell people about South Yorkshire factually.
Yeah.
So where we've been this sort of hidden gem, we're able to go, actually, here's the data, here's these stories, here's this tool, if you like, that out of reports that we've made that allows us to shout about South Yorkshire. So obviously you'll have seen the two big Deal Room reports we've done since then. The first one that we did at last year's Tech Summit in Doncaster was all around sort of understanding the whole landscape of South Yorkshire and where it sort of fits. So it started off looking at of the whole of the north of the UK, and we were able to bring really cool stats around that as well. So like for every £1 invested in the north, you get more money back compared to in the north of the UK compared to the rest of the UK as a whole and London specifically. So again, an easy thing to be able to use data to go, did you know that? Investors need to know that.
Yeah,
if you're a business searching for investment, you can go, well, I'm based in the north and you'll get more bang for your buck.
Yeah.
Easy. But then we were able to look at the whole of South Yorkshire and go, actually, this is the value of the ecosystem. This is how much pre-exit companies are worth in the ecosystem. Here's where the investment happens. Here's where it's not happening. And it was really useful just to get that full, clear, honest truth of what the data meant. And then quite quickly we were hearing those stats be like played back to us, which immediately told us that we had been doing the right thing to get this data and be able to use it. And then we've been able to do some really interesting things with it. As I mentioned to you earlier, that I think, we're within the team, we're having this discussion where it's coming around in a couple of weeks where it's International Women's Day.
Yeah.
So last year we did a report to sort of uncover the stats around that, like women in tech and investment. And last year we hosted a roundtable in partnership with the British Business Bank, and we had Kate Joseph, the chief exec of Sheffield City Council, hosted that. And we were able to really dive in on the discussion and understand some of the challenges. So I thought I'd do a bit of a quick dive this morning and see what's maybe changed, and been able to. I think this is a really good example, hopefully, of where you can see why having this data matters, because it helps steer things for the future. So I looked at this morning how many within Deal Room, so high growth potential businesses, how many of those businesses, which is about 900 essentially, have a female founder? And the answer was 32, which is obviously a very, very small amount. But I looked at the value of those businesses. I think it was just short of 200 million, 198 million.
Wow.
So then I looked at the remaining businesses that were all male-only founded, and they were worth something like 3.1 billion. But actually, if you look at it, the average of those businesses, the businesses with a female founder are worth on average about 6.1 billion.
Right.
Whereas the men-only one, 3.5 million. So actually, it sort of backs up that stat that, having female founders, there is more potential in the business. We saw that when we produced the report last year. There was a stat from, I think it was Lifted Ventures, that sort of supported that. And we looked at other stats as well. So there was a stat around from Sheffield Digital who'd done like a big survey around what are the barriers for women in tech. And there was things like, well, actually, it's harder to get investment. I'm not sure I'm going to be supported enough as a woman, but not one of them said that they didn't think their idea was good enough.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, because then you see actually the ideas are way more than good enough. In fact, they're more than double the value on average.
Yeah.
So being able to then see that and use that, we can hopefully, as Tech SY, in the near future, look to develop a program that supports more women into tech and the challenges around that.
It's really crucial, isn't it? On the point of diversity, is that it's not just a token, right? It's really valuable from a point of view of diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of outlook in terms of, how to achieve a certain goal, and having different opinions on that really forces the individuals making the decisions to have a good argument for why that's the right decision to make.
Yeah, I think that's it. When we looked at the report last year, there were things around like, they've not been able to have the resource. I think there's a stat around only 2% of female founders get invested in, which is horrendous.
It's bonkers, isn't it?
So if you are a female working in tech, you've got to work that extra. You've got to work harder to get that investment. And maybe, I think you were making that sort of point that because they're worth essentially double the amount. Is it because they've worked harder to get there? Maybe.
It's like working. It's like training at altitude, isn't it? Right.
Yeah, what the stats sort of suggest.
Yeah.
I think for us, it's been able to take that data and help use that, and hopefully bring programs that support that. Another thing we've done is create a scale-up dashboard. Yeah. So we launched the first one in Climb 25, so last year in June. And the point was, how do we use data? How do we give it real value to the actual businesses? Which obviously we always try and put the founders first at everything. But we have this resource, we've got all this data. How can we create something that's useful for the businesses? So the idea of a scale-up dashboard had sort of come about. And the idea is to try and highlight those businesses that aren't getting the big coverage, but hopefully the next ones to get that. So we looked at, and we had to look at all the data and look at what a scaling business is classified as. What does that look like in sort of bigger areas like Manchester or London, where you get a lot of scale-ups? What does it mean for South Yorkshire, where there isn't a vast amount of scale-ups? There are some amazing ones like Twinkle, Bumper. Intelliam are now probably very much a scale-up. They're doing amazing things. But we were looking at max amount of investment for about 7.5 million, employee size of about 5 to 25, and a couple of other growth measures that we'd sort of put in. And it spat out about 10 to 15 businesses that were sort of fit this bracket. And what we were able to do is go, right, this is a tool. If you've made this list, hopefully you can use that to sort of show that to investors, or show that to give you. Essentially, we've found a way that your business has been validated because you've either had a grant of some sort, you've had some investment, but you might not be, out there like Bumper getting news every time you sort of breathe, because you're doing amazing things, and it's fine. They've earned that. They've earned that. That coverage. But how do we get that next wave? So being able to identify and promote those businesses was really, really useful.
Yeah,
we've just done ahead of the Tech Summit. We did a bit of a startup showcase a couple of weeks ago, and we unveiled the new sort of version of it. And this time we've split it in two. So we've done a pre-scale, so pretty much what the original was. We've enhanced it a little bit. We've been able to increase what the growth measures are for employee numbers, and said, right, these are ones that are that smaller size and are probably on a longer path to scale, but are showing those right figures. So yeah, not that quite 20% year-on-year growth, but 10 to 19%, doing all the right things. Have the business is obviously validated. And like your ones to watch almost. Yeah. And then we've also done a scaling dashboard, and that is all around going, right, actually, we do have businesses that are hitting that 20%, but it's not been year on year, and they've reached that, they've got a bigger team size now, so it might be more of a up to 50. So they're right on the point of being a scaling business, but actually, how do we help amplify those businesses, get that scaling money and get that sort of capital Series B investment that South Yorkshire really, really lacks.
Yeah.
Because I think that one of the points as well is we'd sort of seen early on in 2025 that Series A investment was coming in quite thick and fast, and it turned out to be that last year was a record year for Series A investment. And so how do we help those businesses that get to that next stage, and hopefully, because there is no capital B investment all of last year.
Right.
Series B, sorry. So what can we do to try and influence that? How do we shout out about those businesses in like in an informed way where it doesn't feel biased? Because again, it's not for us to say whether the business is good or not. And like going back to that early discussion of like my personal learnings or from Ben around, is Lucy and Yak going to be this massive business? I don't know. But actually, the data is showing that these businesses are doing all the right things.
Yeah.
It's validated within that data. And how do we amplify that?
And how do you provide the tools that they need to be able to do that as well, right? Because that's fundamentally what you were talking about in the early discussions about business ideas. You're providing the standard tool kit to be able to validate your idea or to take your valid idea and then turn that into something that turns a profit, that actually makes revenue and all of that sort of stuff, right?
Yeah. So then I think that then it goes back to what is the point of TechSY, and TechSY is a 2-year program to scale up the tech ecosystem. So one of our key outputs was to deliver an action plan for the next 5 years. So again, we've used all this information that we've amassed in the sort of that first 18 months, and been able to devise a program that is, we've worked with all the sort of key stakeholders, those decision-making stakeholders, so the 4 local authorities, Sheffield Tech Parks, Innovate UK, the 2 universities, Innovation Spine, British Business Bank, and we were able to sort of identify the challenges, come up with this vision around creative, an inclusive and growing ecosystem for South Yorkshire, and come up with a load of actions that fit this model of an entrepreneurial ecosystem that identify the challenges, got us to where we needed to be, and now we're at the point where we launched it at the Tech Summit, but we're at the point where we want business feedback now.
Yeah.
So I think it's been really important to like use the data and go, right, deep tech is one of the most invested sectors in South Yorkshire. So we've obviously got stuff that try and grow and amplify that. We struggle on leadership, we struggle on Series B investment. So we've looked at sort of leadership generally, we've looked at finance options, we've looked at markets. How do we continue to grow the narrative of South Yorkshire? And we've brought in tech talent, which isn't something that we've not had the time and resource to address as TechSY. We never intended to within that initial 2 years, but the 5-year action plan needs to continue to grow the tech talent within the region. So yeah, it's been able to use all the data, sort of address challenges, try and come up with solutions, and then actually being able to present something that can change things for the better. And there's a nice stat within the deal room report. It was a graph actually that showed Helsinki and Pittsburgh and where they were sort of 12 to 10 years ago, and they were where South Yorkshire is now with an ecosystem value of around 3 billion.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm pretty sure Pittsburgh and Helsinki are now quite close to like sort of 300 billion in their valuations. So we've got a long way to go, but in 10 years they've been able to get there. And the point of the action plan is if we all collaborate in this and buy into this, that's what Sarita's message was how they got from sort of A to B with that. South Yorkshire can be the same.
Yeah.
Might not get 300 billion. It's not about being Helsinki and Pittsburgh because they're obviously massive cities. But it's been able to have that point and that moment that goes, right, this is what we're going to do. If we're all aligned on it, we can see growth. We can have a massive impact for this region.
And along the way, different lessons will be learned, different approaches will be made. But the crucial point there being that it needs to be collaborative, right? It needs a vision from the region to make that a reality. And crucially, having that baseline of data, empirical data, to inform decision making really makes the difference as well, right? Because otherwise you can't see any improvement. You can't improve something you can't measure, because fundamentally how have you improved it, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Yeah, I think that's it. We've been able to benchmark. That was one of the other things that initially when we got Deal Room was how do we benchmark against other ecosystems so we know where we fit. I think that goes to where we'd heard South Yorkshire is this startup capital, and actually we can start to now compare that see what that actually means in real terms. And it gives us a load of different measures and metrics to measure against as well, rather than just trying to come up with one that meets everything. Actually, you can turn it around and go, actually, well, I think we were named as 8th in the UK for the best spin-outs in the UK recently by Deal Room. So we did a report on what that looks like and how do we grow that section. Obviously, we've said we've had this great year on Series A investment. How do we, if we've got all these businesses now that have had that and are at this stage, what can we do to support them to get to the next stage and further? Because we see that those that grow and do well, hopefully they'll see a well-working ecosystem in which they can sort of give back to. We've sort of seen the likes of that with Dave Richards, Pete Hopton, the guys from Sheffield Angels that are coming back into the region, more so into Sheffield, admittedly, but being able to give back, and I think that's sort of starting that flywheel of it all.
And it's not just about investment; it's about experience. It's about knowledge and understanding, and being able to be an aspiration for a lot of people as well, right? Matt, there's a question that I always have to ask as part of my podcasts, and that is, what's your ultimate sandwich?
So I have obviously thought about this because I've heard you ask this a number of times. And I don't know if it's basic or if it just cannot actually be beaten because it's so good. And it's quite, I think people that know me will say I'm maybe a bit stubborn and stuck in my ways, but a bacon sandwich with a fried egg on top and tomato sauce on bacon, brown sauce on sausage is my rule. Yeah, a bacon and egg sandwich, I just don't see a world where it gets better than that. In what way does your day not improve? A Sunday morning.
I absolutely agree. Keep it simple, stupid is always a way to go, right? Especially, I've got loads of questions now. I do subscribe to the point of view that it needs to be tomato ketchup on bacon and brown sauce on sausages. Absolutely. How are you having your egg? Is it like kind of runny still, or is it? Okay. Fried on both sides, just a little bit?
Or just a little bit, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Streaky bacon, smoky bacon, bacon back. What are we going?
Any, really. I'm not fussy when it comes to that bit. Given the choice, maybe back bacon unsmoked wouldn't be my preference, but then sometimes mix it up a bit.
Crispy, fried to within an inch of its life, or it's still got some give to it?
Yeah, I don't like it if the bacon itself is too crispy. Yeah. Fat's dead crispy, obviously.
Yeah.
But the actual bacon, not too much.
Sliced bread, bap?
I call it a bread bun.
We'll not get into that argument here. White or brown?
White.
White, yeah.
White, ideally. If we're being healthy, we'll go brown.
The rest of the sandwich is not healthy. I think you're shooting in the dark there, right? Awesome. And so I always have I'm a sausage and egg sandwich man. I'd have that over a bacon and egg, right? But I always have to have it at a certain, kind of in a certain scenario, which is on a Sunday morning at the rugby, right? Both my boys play rugby. I coach some rugby as well. So it's kind of synonymous with that for me. Do you have it at a certain place?
I think imagine if you're like taking the dog for a walk, stop at a little cafe. Oh, sensational.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sunday morning watching, because I'm now a father of two, so the idea that I watch Match of the Day on a Saturday night is long gone. Match of the Day on a Sunday morning, bacon and egg sandwich. Brilliant.
Tradition.
On the sofa. Yeah. Hungover. Amazing.
Awesome.
I was on a stag do in Edinburgh at the weekend.
The fat. Yeah.
I had one there. It's just a lifesaver.
It's a lifeline.
Yeah.
It's got a narrative that threads itself through your life.
Should become like an NHS priority or something, probably.
Prescribed on the NHS, I'm sure there's got to be legs in that, right? It's got to be cheaper than some there's some medication, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's unbelievable.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Well, that's it for this episode of the podcast. All is to say is that we've got the next meetup happening on the 12th of March, changing it from the DMC. We're moving to Spiral City upstairs, and it'll be from half 7, I almost said, 5:30. And Matt will be taking us through some more of the data around Tech SY and what we've discovered over the past, I haven't had any to do with it, what they've discovered over the last 2 years. And other than that, that's all to say is thank you very much for coming on,
thank
Matt.
you very much.
It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.